Why do people wait until they are overwhelmed to seek God for restoration? Have you had a time when you needed God to restore you, but were afraid to take time to care for yourself amid other responsibilities? And that brings us today to today's key verse, which reads, "What's more, I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. One day I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you everything I have promised you." Genesis chapter 28, verse 15. Jacob might have intended to reach Luz, but because the sun had set, he opted to stop and rest for the night. The stop was divinely appointed. The place where he stopped had already been consecrated by one of Abraham's altars. So Jacob took some of the stones and made them his pillow. And Jacob fell asleep and had a dream where he saw a ladder resting upon the earth, with the top reaching to heaven, and upon it angels of God going up and down. Although the etymology of the Hebrew word for ladder is not entirely certain, its meaning and symbolism are without doubt. It was a visible symbol of the real and uninterrupted fellowship between God in heaven and God's people upon earth. The presence of the angels, God's messengers, served to support the notion that God wanted to communicate with Jacob. Also, dreams often served as instruments of divine revelation in the Old Testament. So as Jacob slept, he had a powerful dream that gave him insight into the realm of God's power. In ancient days, gods were thought to be confined by certain physical boundaries, but also having special places where heaven touched earth. As Jacob saw the ladder stretched from heaven to earth, God revealed to Jacob that he was available and accessible. What a much needed, refreshing, and inspiring experience for Jacob. God showed up for him at the right time. Jacob was tired, lonely, and forlorn when he arrived at Bethel. He had no company to travel with, no place but the ground for a bed, and no pillow but a stone for his head. But he experienced God in a personal and unusual way. The doors at home to his family and to Beersheba were shut, but the window of heaven was wide open to him. God showed a ladder of hope to a hopeless Jacob who was caught up with a problem of his own making. And for a short while, God made his presence, promise, and providence accessible to Jacob. God never ceases to seek relationship with humanity, and he continues to communicate with humanity in unexpected ways. In proclaiming himself to Jacob as the God of his fathers, God not only confirmed to him all the promises made to Abraham, and the blessing for which Isaac had prayed in their fullest extent, but God also assured Jacob of protection on his dangerous journey and a safe return to his home. God revealed himself as God who keeps promises through generations. God showed him the communication that exists between heaven and earth, the guard of angels, and his ever watchful eye looking down on him, whether awake or asleep. God confirmed Jacob's destiny as the heir of God's promise to his forefathers and to the world. Jacob then has nothing to fear. No evil would happen to him while God was his guardian and strong defense. Jacob names the place Bethel, house of God. The town had been called Luz. Jacob made a vow. This was no ordinary vow, but a grand and solemn expression of Jacob's complete acceptance of the Lord to be his God, the significance of which is underscored by its mention again at key points in Jacob's journey. God had already made an unconditional promise to Jacob to watch over him and bring him back to this land. Jacob did not need to do anything in return, but still he offered to God an altar, a tithe, and a commitment. One thing is certainly clear from this episode. Jacob was gradually coming to the end of himself. Instead of relying on his abilities, he was to stop being the trickster, as his name implies, and to rely on God to supply his needs and protect him. Here's our lesson. Our involvement in our careers and families make it difficult for many of us to spend quiet time with the Lord. Yet, if we are to hear him, we have to make time. So let's determine to find time early in the morning, late in the evening, or another time that is just for us and God. Thank you for listening and subscribing to iLights. Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we truly desire, for who we truly seek is you.